Greeting, Judah, Israel. It's your brother DFG. Hey, brothers and sisters. I'm going to ask that you forgive my disheveled look, if I might say that way. But I have something to share with my brothers and sisters, and I'm just going to say it. Yah told me to get up, and He told me to just come out and say it exactly as He showed it to me. I believe I saw the second Exodus, and I saw it in a dream. And here's what I saw. I was standing almost in this big yard, like a courtyard. And inside of this courtyard, there was this big giant box, or it almost looked like I was digging inside of this big box. And I don't know why, but it looked as though like it was like the hood of a truck. And I'd opened up this hood. Inside of this hood, there were thousands and thousands of people. And I took my hands and I was taking the people out of this hood. And as I took the people out of the hood, I was placing these people, on the ground or on this big field. And the people were in it, the field, like a football field, but it was much bigger than a big foot. It was almost like a big, wide open space, yard. But huge. And I was constantly just taking them out and taking them out and taking them out and taking them out and taking them out. And I didn't understand why, but I knew it was my job to take them out. And as I took them out and laid them, the next thing I saw in this dream, that everybody seemed to be happy, cheerful, joyful. And I was happy because I was just happy to see everybody happy. And the dream pictures changed on me. And then I was in a big building. And inside this building, I'm looking out and I'm looking at all the people. And they're playing, they're young kids playing out there. There are teenagers out there, young adults playing out there. Older people, but I didn't see anybody, gray-haired. They may have been there, but I didn't take any notice of them. But everybody out there was moving around and they were excited and they were playing sports and games and laughter. The kids were running around. And as I continued to look, this presence came up behind me. And the presence asked me, "What are you looking at?" And as I began to say, something told me, "No, be quiet, don't say anything." But I'm looking and I look to my right and there's this big board. And there are many, many names on this board. And as I hear this voice telling me or asking me, "What am I looking at?" I wouldn't say anything because there was another voice saying, "Just be quiet." And then this voice came over and looked out the window as I was looking out to see what I was seeing. And this voice spoke to the people out there. And as he started to speak, the people looked up. And I looked back over at the board and I started to see the board, the names on the board started to erase. Started to disappear. And then I began to realize that this voice was taking the people back to where I had taken them out of. And I became afraid. And I thought to myself, well, maybe, I'll say something too. Because then I could go with them. And as I attempted to say something as well, another voice, a greater voice said to me, "No, you can't do that because that wouldn't be true. You can't say that because then you would be lying." Then it got really quiet. And many of the people that were in that yard were gone. And I remember looking back at the board, but I still saw a few names on the board, but where the board was just full of information, almost like a mathematical equation board. And I noticed there was still some names. There were big gaps though now. Instead of being filled with just gaps, big open, clear gaps with nothing, but there were still some names there. And then I asked, again, to this other voice, not the voice that was behind me, because I realized that this voice was from the darkness, from Hades. And I asked the greater voice, what is it that I had seen? And the greater voice said, this is the judgment. And I'm like, well, what judgment? He said, this is the judgment of the Exodus. And I'm thinking, well, isn't the Exodus, where we're going to all be in the valley of Jehoshaphat? And, as Joel, this is what I'm thinking in the dream, brothers and sisters. This is not something that I read, and this is not an explanation to you all. And I said, well, isn't the valley of isn't the final Exodus is going to be to the valley of Jehoshaphat, as it is in Joel 3. This is in my mind while I'm having this vision, this dream. And he says, yes. He said, didn't I tell you that I would come, and I would fight against the enemy? That I would come and fight up on behalf of Israel? And I said, well, how did we all get there? He said, because I shortened the distance. He said, I shortened the distance. He said, don't you remember what I did, for your people when they left out of Egypt in the first Exodus? Don't you remember how I split the seas, or the sea 12 ways? And I said, yes, I do. I remember, Yahuwah. This is now I'm beginning to realize who's talking. He said, well, I did it again. And everybody who's supposed to be there are there. And then the last thing he said to me in the dream is that those names that were erased off the board, those were the 2/3 of Israel because of their rebellion. They were not redeemed. Then I awakened, and here I am. If you have thoughts on this, comments on it, brothers and sisters, feel free to share it. But, that was the dream. Yahuwah Shalom.